Very, very interesting. So let's move into the panel now. So Frederick and myself, Alan, from Jumbo and Michael. And in the interests of, as you mentioned, Frederick, in your keynote, authenticity and normalness, I will tell everybody here in the 450 or so that are watching us that I have some pre-prepared questions for you guys. But as you were talking, Freddie, I scribbled down some notes as well. So we'll cross between them, and let's keep this very free-flowing. So please, any of you guys, feel free to jump in and answer a question. A lot of the questions I won't put to any specific person. I'll just throw out there. But Freddie, I'll give you a rest for a second because you've just spoken for a quarter of an hour, and go to the suppliers and ask just a very open question to begin with. So how has the whole COVID thing that we've been in at the moment affected your product development? We're talking about innovation today, so your whole product development life cycle and process. Alan, Michael?
I'm happy to answer that one if you like, Andrew, to start with. So I think the reality for us is the volume of games that we as a company would normally put in to the market has certainly reduced a percentage. But what we've done is look at the way that we can then best define games by region, simply because of the fact we believe that for a period of time, it will become more of a localized market due to restrictions in international travel. And that localized player is very important for the continued success of all of our operator partners out there by providing the style of game, the right product, the right style of jackpot startups, whether it be a link-based game, etc., so that those local players feel value. And a lot of them are actually going to IRs, some of them for the first time, because they wouldn't normally go and visit those bases. They would normally gamble or play at their local venues. But because there's more offers available and an opportunity to go without these so-called crowds, that we find the game design, localizing game is critical. The other parts of our innovation, the way we're looking at, is definitely in our systems field. And that is looking at how we mobilise, or we make the gaming experience mobile in relation to play a card, using a mobile phone to log in to the machine, to tap onto the machine, using kiosk functionality in relation to not having the player to physically go up to the kiosk. They can utilise the app of the property they're involved in. They can check their point balance. They can enter a random draw, and they can check on the promotions, everything that a normal kiosk might do. So there's some of the things that we've been looking at innovating from an IGT side.
Alan, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, yeah. Well, for us, since the pandemic, we noticed that if operation will resume, we have to reduce the chance of person-to-person contact. So by providing protection or notifier, as what Michael had mentioned earlier, by using the system, to notify that the machine needs to be clean after a use, that becomes very important to us in terms of development. And also, as mentioned earlier by Frederick, digital, that will be the trend. And that is the future trend. And that's what we're seeing now. So we believe land-based, it's one of the income, but digital will be the future. And we're also working on that right now. Thank you.
And working between suppliers and operators, I mean, Michael, are you talking to operators about, obviously it's a time now where they've got a little bit of time to sit down and have some meetings while they're so-called waiting and thinking, but there's a lot of thinking going on at the moment about how things are going to be when we come back. Are you going and meeting over Zoom maybe, meeting with operators and talking this through with them about new ways of doing things?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're still fortunate here in Macau that we have some of the leading larger organisations represented across here, both from a local historical basis and international providers. But and where we can meet with them and do meet with them, we are regularly talking. And it's about, I think that what we're simply trying to say is, in our product and technology portfolio, these are the range of products that we traditionally had available, which were very much a service edge-based style of product, but how do we then help you, customer, adapt that to a safer gaming environment? And I think that that's certainly something that we're doing. The other thing that we're talking to the customers about is to say, if we're going to live in a restricted footprint environment with the social distancing of one off, how do we help you and advise you on your bank design? How do we look at, say, reducing a bank size as an example to, instead of having 8 and 10 machine banks, how do we create a simpler 6 machine bank whereby we can have the 4 corners turned on and the two machines in the middle as being like the filler machine, for the want of a better word, a better term, but that would then at least allow that we can have that, so the link games and the high profit games on the machine, on the floor, utilise more, available to players a little bit more. So banking, technology, taking service to be more positive in relation to sanitisation. They're the sorts of things we're talking about.
So as you're talking there, I'm scribbling down a few notes here, and I want to try and summarise it in a few words, maybe give the audience a takeaway at the end of it, and some of the themes that are emerging, right? So obviously, this whole concept, and Freddie, you touched on it in your keynote, was that there's a whole concept of trusted crowds and space and distancing. And I find myself now walking down the street, if there's somebody walking towards me, I try to bisect the edge of the footpath and that person, and conscious of going, well, I want to put the maximum amount of space between me and them. Now, you translate that to a gaming floor, right? So all of a sudden, we've taken this space, which traditionally we've always made full of crowds and happy and busy and people high-fiving or whatever, and now we're superimposing on top of that this sort of space and distancing idea. Freddie, do you have any comments on that, or like how that, because we're social creatures, aren't we? We go to integrated resorts to have fun and enjoy each other's company. So part of our brain is going, I've got to keep apart from people. Part of our brain is going, well, I'm here to have fun and to interact socially.
Yes, but I think, you know, what you're going to find is something actually super developed in around Asia is a lot of the salon and games, whether it's in the, you know, whether it's in on the gaming floor, whether it's in some of the clubs, in some of the restaurants, things that are way more controlled. And I think going to places that we're able to control better, at least at the start, will be super important. I think the second thing is going to be about, you know, the use again of technology, and, you know, there's apps today that can help you trace COVID if it's there. You know, how do you guarantee that's contrary to what happened in Vegas? You know, the people who are on the other side are also wearing the mask and being careful. I mean, at least in Asia, people are way more disciplined than in the States for this. But I think the other thing is maybe this is not the first pandemic. You know, maybe this is something that's going to continue. Maybe even if it's not the first pandemic, I think people will remain more cautious than they tended to be, especially if we have new waves coming. So I think, you know, and again, these are stupid things, but rather than just trying to separate everything, which kind of works short term, maybe there are ways of detecting viruses that go on surfaces. Maybe there's ways of self-cleaning. You know, my health club has something where I just put my phone onto a thing with UV lights, and that's meant to, you know, to kill any virus. Not sure how that works, but it's things like this maybe that we need to look at, that of services that self-clean, that is a bit more radical research and technology into spaces. And I think that's because I think what we're seeing now is here to stay for a while. So, you know, I think short term it's going to be about how we associate people, how you can create crowds that trust each other, and that includes obviously our personnel, so that people feel comfortable playing. You can make sure that the moment you trace, you can stop anything, otherwise it's the closure again, which nobody wants. So, you know, I think there'll be, and I think again, there'll be a huge amount of technology and R&D coming this way, sure.
It's interesting what you say about perhaps continuing pandemics. I mean, as a media guy, I'm an avid reader of articles being published. And I read an article recently that looked at pandemics over the last several hundred years, and they're becoming more and more and more frequent. And they listed, I can't remember all the reasons. I remember one of them was the ease of international travel being so much cheaper now that if a pandemic gets, or if a virus gets going somewhere, it can just race around the world so quickly, like we've seen. So that might, I mean, we're having this sort of horrible 6 months now, but what you're saying is this might translate into a long-term change in mindset. One of the things you mentioned was cleanliness, right? So now you've got it's like a risk to go out of your house now. So you need a big payoff to take that risk to go out of your house, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's not, you know, risk. I don't think we need to go crazy, but I think it's good to always be extremely paranoid. You know, this is a rehearsal. It's good to take all the learnings and make sure we apply them so we don't get surprised on the next time, and we can kill these viruses before they do this to us. So I think there's a lot of things here and reactions which has been super fast, and Macau in that sense has been amazing. How quickly they reacted, how quickly everyone's played along in the game to make sure the viruses stopped. And I wish other places in the world would be as good, So I think that we've got learnings that we need to make sure we can apply, continue to apply, but also stimulating all of the innovation to try and make sure that we can stamp on it quicker next time and make sure it doesn't continue.
So I mean, question to everybody: how do you either as an IR, as an operator, or as a product supplier that's supplying, how do you what sort of changes do you make to make this more, what sort of marketing do you do? How do you get that message across? How do you change the environment that players come into, that they feel, perception is everything, right? So that they walk, that this could be a point of competition, can't it, between either suppliers or between operators? What can you do, for example, Freddie, as an operator in your product, in your property, that when a player walks in or a customer walks in, he goes, oh, this place feels safer to me. This place feels cleaner to me compared to the place down the road. Or with products, it feels like a safer product. Maybe I have to touch it less, or maybe there's something there because perception is very important in driving revenue, right?
Question to me, Andrew, or question to the group?
Question to who wants to answer it.
Andrew, I'll have a bit of a stab at that one. I think the way you potentially deliver that message as a property and the way that you achieve that is via your loyalty club communication, and you provide the player the belief that prior to entering the venue that everything is being done to provide a safe gaming environment that includes not only sanitisation but also positioning, layout, positioning of sanitisation stations, gels, temperature checking of everyone coming in. But equally then you reinforce that on the floor with a mobile product, as we were chatting a little bit about before, whereby you can use your technology to assist your gaming system technologies to actually, as soon as the machine is carded out or the 0 credits on the machine for 15 seconds, as an example, that a staff attendant is informed via their mobile phone. They go over, they sanitise the machine, and I'm not sort of talking as basic as putting a little sash across it, but some sort of symbology to say this machine has just recently been cleaned, it's safe to play. Some of those sorts of things might be ways that start to make players feel comfortable. And I think perception is going to be what a lot of what they see around them. If they see active staff, well-spaced gaming layouts, clean environments, I think that's a big step in the right direction.
Let me move on to the whole concept of contactless. And we're hearing this word contactless over and over and over again, right? So technology often races ahead of regulation. I mean, are there maybe for the suppliers, Alan or Michael, like, are there issues around regulation for promoting contactless solutions in your technology?
Well, contactless, what we have heard from operators during the time that casinos are shut down is how do they generate revenue? So we were also looking at slot streaming, for example, but that in terms of regulation has an interest of conflict, as some countries, they allow online gaming, but offshore, not within their own country. And that becomes a conflict that we need to resolve. Can we generate the revenue? Can we allow the locals to play online gaming as well and make the use of the machines that's already there in the casinos and reduce the staff, reduce the people-to-people contact? So that's one of the things. Another thing that was very important and we learned from the Taiwan government is travel history. Given an example, after I travel to Thailand, I go to a dentist with my healthcare card. They can track down where I was for the last 14 days, and they refuse to treat me. And we're also working with operator on that, a travel history report to the system. So you know where your players coming from. Are they coming from a place that's dangerous with the virus? Yes. And that's it.
Sorry, go ahead. that brings up another question that's been bugging me. You know, there's more. I remember when I first got back to Macau from Europe after ICE, I tried to walk into my building, and somebody wanted to take my temperature, and I resisted that. I was like, hang on a minute, you can't take my temperature. What are you going to do if my temperature is too high? You're not going to let me walk into my own building where I live. That within 24 hours, I was letting everybody take my temperature. So it's just a total change in mindset because you see everybody else doing it, so you're acclimatized. Now, with all these, you know, contracting tracing apps and the, you know, as you mentioned, travel history and so forth, it always brings up the question about privacy. And, you know, we're just throwing our privacy away. We really are. And I think it tends to be older people that talk about this more than younger people. Younger people are like, I don't have any privacy. There isn't any privacy anymore. But is that still an issue? Or is it just simply that we've got to understand that as time goes on, everything's going to be digital? I mean, Freddie, you talked about everything being digital, your whole life being digital. So everything is traceable. Like we lose paper money and we just have Bitcoin or various, you know, cryptocurrencies. All your transactions are registrable. I remember years ago, they tried to bring you a card in Australia. You might remember that, Michael, and there was a furor over that. That would be a joke these days. So any comments on you know, on the loss of privacy? Will people resist, or do you think, particularly in this part of the world, Freddie, that Chinese players will just go, well, that's absolutely fine. You know, there's been no resistance there.
I'm not sure it's Chinese players or anyone else. I think that the debate with privacy hides something else, which is if you're going to make, if I'm going to give out privacy, and in most cases we have given it out, but we give it out with no problem if it's useful. So I'm happy giving it out to on Google Map because I tell me where to go and how I get to where I want to go. I'm happy giving it out to Amazon because it helps inform what I'm going to watch. Same thing with Netflix. If that's useful, then to the hell with the privacy. You know, it's if it improves the product that I as a guest receive or I as a client receive, I'm okay giving it out. If it's only for you to be able to market and send me more messages and just nag me and tell other people what I'm doing, then it raises questions. So I think it's always the same thing. People are okay if it's useful for them. If it's not, and if it's purely selfish on the company side, then they're going to raise questions. You know, I think the bigger problem with privacy is the security of the data, the safety of the data, and what you do with it. So, you know, and it's always the same thing when you log onto Facebook, for example, or to an app that says they're going to be on Facebook and they're going to have access to everything you do. You freak out. Why would they need that? You know. So if there's a need and if there's an improvement for me as a user, no problem. If it's safe and if you can guarantee again that it's safe, same thing.
So what you're saying is it's simply a trade-off. It's a cost benefit. If I'm getting this benefit, I'm prepared to give away the privacy. I guess the privacy threshold is probably in our own minds is just going down, down, down as time goes on.
Yeah, I think we'll get used to it, you know.
So we have a number of different developments going on in Asia at the moment. There's actually, we've got obviously even in Macau, we've got 2022 coming up. In Singapore, both MBS and Resorts World are committing $3.3 billion to their next phases. We've got development going on in the Philippines. There's a lot of new development going out through Asia. Even Galaxy Phase 3, Phase 4, you go around the grounds and there's a lot going on. Tens of billions of dollars in investment. Again, to anybody, do you think that what sort of changes now, we're talking about innovation, is this like a circuit breaker, this COVID? Could it actually make some serious developmental changes in those sort of reactions, in those sort of developments where, hang on a minute, let's stop and rethink this. We might want to change something in that kind of development. Even what's going on in Japan as well. Any thoughts on that from anyone?
Andrew, I think that's an interesting scenario because there's one of our leading markets in Asia in Singapore that has a very clearly stipulated floor space regime as compared to the rest of the IR offering. And that thinking is very much driven by an old traditional thinking that if we limit the amount of casino floor space, we therefore limit this property as a gambling venue versus an overall integrated resort. We want it to be seen more as a food and beverage, a shopping venue, a theatre venue, etc. And by the way, you're allowed to have the casino space on the side. The reality is that if you continue that thinking and force venues to fund their overall IR by reduced floor space, governments also then run the risk of creating environments that aren't conducive to health and safety in the world that we live. So I think that there needs to be consideration for future developments and ability for casinos to run the right number of slots, the right number of tables, the right environment with the right mix of machines to be safe, and have governments allow them to have the footprint to effectively be able to do that and deliver what the government want to achieve, and that is the tax money they achieve out of it, but also without any cost of any health-related issues.
So does this mean, when talking about floor space, and you alluded to it before, Freddie, about VIP or premium players or a different type of customer coming back first? You know, when I first went to Macau, I think there were 300 junkets. Now there's 90, and there's only really 4 that matter. And VIP went from 80% of Macau's GGR down to 50%, or even a little under 50%. But now, you know, those flag followers, as I call them, those 50,000 flag followers going through the Venetian every day, that don't really add much value at all. We don't really want them now, because all they're doing is bringing more people, bringing more bodies, bringing more virus. So the recovery, all the analysts and everybody seems to be talking about, okay, when we reopen, we're going to be very targeted. We're going to be looking for VIP. We're going to be looking for premium mass, because we can have 1/10 of the players or even 1/20 of the players, but still get 1/3 of the revenue back. So is there going to be, from an operator's point of view, Frederick, a real focus on VIP and premium and eschewing mass? I know Melco's a little different, because you do focus on that anyway, but looking at operators in total.
Well, I think you don't wake up one day and decide you're going to be premium. You know, premium is something that's in the offer. It's in the hotel. It's in the service. It's in the infrastructure. It's in the way you're looking after your guests. You don't just do it like this. It's not Snap, you know. And the products that are very mass are very different from the premium products, and the level of investments that had to get into it in the first place, and the habits that certain people took, you know, are not going to be just working like this. So I think it's going to, as you said, I believe there'll be first the high value guests. I don't think you should be, we should be debating on what we call flag wavers or whatever. You know, they're still clients. They still go there. There's still people who want to travel. There will still be a lot of people in China who want to travel, because it's unlikely, let's face it, even if they can come to Macau, they won't be able to go anywhere else in Asia probably. So there'll be people wanting to move and travel. I think that's why we need to, and even the premium players enjoy a place that's vibrant. You know, so it's how, and that's when I talk about trusted crowds, how you create that. You know, I think the people that are mass will remain mass, and they'll probably suffer a bit longer, and the ones that are more premium should do better at the start. So, you know, will there be a shift? I think there'll be more of a battle for the premium gamblers, but there always were. You know, the issue is more, you know, how solid is the infrastructure, the people, the service, how we look after them, and how we guarantee them that they're safe when they're coming.
You alluded to it, Alan, before, and I can tell you that every single one of these digital things I've been on, without fail, online gambling has come up. And I'm going to bring it up because I just have to bring it up. And, you know, everybody sees that as the panacea. All the online guys, of course, jump on and say, well, this justifies us. All the offline guys say, well, online gambling, wouldn't it be great if we can have it? I mean, let's just get the elephant out in the room, right? Of course, Asia, we have very limited online gambling in terms of regulation. We've got what we've got in the Philippines, but you know, is it time for us to go to regulators, and even in somewhere like Macau, and say, look, let's do a New Jersey model where the online gaming is connected to existing bricks and mortar operators that have regulation. I mean, if we can do online gaming light, the absolute lightest, or even bring back proxy betting or something. I mean, you mentioned before, Alan, about streaming slots, right? What sort of, maybe go to you, Alan, in terms of from a product point of view, if you wanted to make something that worked online but was the most palatable to regulators, for example, what sort of things are your comments on that?
Well, the company was changing directions. We're starting to looking at social casino gaming, and I think a lot of manufacturers have already started doing that, and it's also very popular in the States as well. Like they play for free, not like the real online, which is they play for real money. But I think it should be regulated in Asia. I mean, you look at China; it's a huge market. You know, online. Company, they're making so much money, but their money is not on the table, right? It's you don't know where it's coming from. So if we can regulate that, it'll definitely help the gaming business. And I think having an app that players can go home after playing in casinos and play the same game that they like in casinos and bundle with marketing and all that, I think it should help both ends. Yeah, and that's just my thoughts.
Well, and even Frederick talked from an operator's point of view, a bricks and mortars operator point of view, even if you went something as absolutely as simple as, okay, you finish playing on the table, but you can take this tablet up to your room and keep playing on that table via that tablet. I mean, that's very, very light form of online gaming. I mean, is this something that, I mean, this is a bit of a question without notice, I apologize, but, you know, is this something that you think we're going to, it's inevitable, but we just have, it's a question of whether we wait 1 year, 5 years, or 20 years to see it? I mean, everything's going online.
I think it's everything is going online, and you know, online gambling and gaming is become quite a big business. You know, you have big companies doing those, and they've done reasonably well during COVID. And you know, let's look at the stock price being done well. You know, I think it's a question of regulation, to be honest. And as you know, there are very few markets in the world are as highly regulated as we are, and it is all about that. So I think the other thing though is you know, there's a notion of experience which is different when you go online to when you go real, and I think that's, you know, you don't just continue the same thing. So you know, again, that needs to be balanced, which is why it's often a slightly different crowd that does play, and they play differently. So you know, it's not just you do this and continue up in your room. You know, but again, this is all going to be driven through regulation.
It was astonishing to me to what one of our reporters asked, I can't remember, it's in one of our stories, but asked the DICJ either at a press conference or something, you know, what about online gaming, fully expecting the usual response of no way, no how, that's never coming. And the response was, we're looking at it. Now, that doesn't mean anything, but at least they said that we're looking at it, which is really
great. You know, the digital is one of the key things of the new CE, which is great.
Yeah, it's a great shot. I want to talk a little bit about brand segmentation, customization. So, you know, years ago it was about breaking things into segments, but now we keep so much data on our customers that we can have effectively segments of one. You know, we have so many fields and so much data there. Either, you know, Michael talk about your systems that you have, or Freddie, the information that you keep on individual customers. What is this going to accelerate? Is this time that we have now and this time to stop and think about things, is it going to accelerate our sort of deep dive into our customers and targeting them as individuals rather than as segments or smaller segments? Is that an ongoing process? I mean, Freddie, you've had decades in branding and marketing, right? So is this, even outside of the gaming industry, is this something that's been going on in the world? We're just getting more and more and more targeted?
Sure, and because we have the tools now to do that, you know, so we have the tools to learn a lot more of what people have bought, what they've done, what they've been looking at. So, you know, you can do mass one-to-one targeting, which is a very, very, you know, you think obviously it has a huge impact on how you manage databases, messages, but also through, you know, in communication itself, the way that people respond teaches you something about them that you can then adapt to the next message you're giving out. So absolutely. I mean, you know.
And I guess customers are getting more and more demanding, because as they get that, then they want that more. You mentioned before about, well, what's going to get me to get up off my chair? You know, they're getting more and more demanding and more needy, aren't they, our customers? So we're going to have to be more and more responsive.
Yeah, and very often it's not even get off my chair. They don't want to get off their chairs. You know, and why would they? They've been used to not doing so. You know, people bring the web brings stuff to you. Why does the real life not bring stuff to you? You know, so, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'll avoid turning that into a question about online gaming, bringing gambling to them. Michael, what about your? I mean, IGT is well known for its systems. I mean, are you adding innovations within your system? You mentioned a couple of things before, but new things you guys have been working on as a result of this time?
Yeah, I think we've expedited some of our developments. in particular identifying the importance of rewarding a player experience and giving direct value in that land-based environment, given the fact that they've come out of home environment, probably come out of restricted travel, shut down. They're finally in their gaming or casino environment. And that's with products such as Intelligent Offer, whereby we can identify with certain thresholds a player's pattern of behaviour, player spend, either on time on device or total spend, etc. And then knowing the history of that player, visitation of that player, the sorts of likes and dislikes, the offer can be specifically tailored to them. So products like that, Intelligent Offer, just expanding a lot of the stuff that we already do in relation to our bonusing solutions, whereby based upon a player's entering a certain level of time on the device or spend, providing that service window interaction where the service window would open, allow them to pay a bonus game which has some rewards, or if they're playing on a link, if someone on that link was to win a major prize, then they can all share and celebrate that, and they would receive a lower credit value, so they feel that they're involved. So I think that what we're saying is drive value to the player while you have them in your venue, be intelligent and smart with the way you deliver, and we hope that that will drive repeat visitation and increase share of wallet.
Alan, let me ask you a question about slightly adjacent areas like skill games and esports and this sort of stuff. We've got all these people staying home playing on their computers, and as generation comes through, younger people, we're seeing this explosion in esports and all this sort of stuff. Are you factoring in not just that, but other things that you're seeing online, maybe not necessarily even in the gaming as in gambling industry, into your thinking?
Oh yeah, so this year we are launching a game which is called Fishing Game. So that's very popular in China, in Southeast Asia, even in the States. So we're actually just GUI certified with that product. And that was actually started online first, and it was actually very successful. We see a lot of companies having that fishing game. So it's a multiplayer game, which I'll show you guys in a bit. And so we bring that to the land base, and we're looking at a bright future this year. Before the pandemic, we thought we were going to be a good hit, but who knows? Yeah, so we definitely think skill games will be one of the trend, and that's esports as well. Yeah, because we see the younger generation, they're betting on people. Oh, this team will win the NBA 2K, or who will win the next game, right? So that will be a trend too.
I saw on one of my feeds last night the first gambling scandal for marble racing. I don't know if you guys have followed. I've been following this marble racing, and which is absolutely fascinating. If anyone wants to go out there and Google and go on YouTube, there's a thing called Marbula One. These marbles go around. It's just amazing. And they had their first scandal the other day because somebody caught in the very back of a frame a hand flicking one of the marbles. So they actually put one of the marbles on. And so there's families going on. We could talk about this for hours, but our time is up. So our time is up on the panel. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. And for the people who've been I've been seeing questions come through. We'll get to them at the Q&A at the end. Thank you very much. And